Hello and welcome to the Chill and Spill. If you're not new around here, make sure you have your drinks and your snacks ready as we dive into the topic. If you are new around here, then hello, welcome. We are happy to have you. The Chill and Spill is basically a yap session where we grab a drink, whether it's a stiff or soft drink, snacks of your choosing, and we simply talk and yap about whatever subject matter is on our mind at this point in time. You'll probably also see me looking down at my notes every once in a while, or very often, because I am scatterbrained and it's very easy for me to get off topic. But please join us. Make yourself comfy. And today I'm simply having a water because it's good for the skin. And I am also pairing that with a soju laced 7 Up. By the way, I just want to say, whoever said soju tastes like juice, you deserve to go someplace unpleasant because that shit does not taste like juice. I remember hearing so much about how, oh my god, soju tastes like juice and it's so good and yaza yaza yaza, and then I get it, I'm like, wait a minute, this says 13% alcohol, but maybe you don't taste it. I took a sip and almost died. But anyway, it's great when mixed with other things. I will say that. I have been mixing it with sugar-free sodas because I'm kind of trying to cut out as much sugar out of my diet as possible because your girl not trying to be diabetic for life or any of that stuff. I gotta transition. The girlies are starting to come in. You need the fats and the cut back on the sugars a little bit. It's a whole process. It's a whole thing. But anyway, that's beside the point. We are here to yap about Madame Zinx, a support hero in Predecessor. But of course, we can't just dive into everything because that's not how I work. First, we need to take a step all the way back into time, and understand who Zinx is and where she came from before we start talking about how her skins and such relate to where I am coming from speaking on her design. So, with all that said, I know I'm already yapping a lot, but before I really get to yapping, um, just some things to like keep in mind is that, like, again, I am a beginner at 3D art and character design. I've always been enamored by 3D art and character design since, I want to say, about elementary school, the early like cartoon Toonami days. I've always grown up imagining, the characters redesigned as like my friends and other things, and like how that universe would look if we told other stories, etc., etc. I'm basically the DEI that most people hate. I'm always on my soapbox about how, like, I want more character diversity and I love the way characters look and designs and stuff like that. So keep all that in mind. I'm not a professional. There's like stuff that I've learned or I have been learning as I've dived deeper into 3D art, and that's what I'm using to kind of parse and guide my critique of the concept of explorations. And I'm going to say this at the top of everything. Remember, these are concept art explorations. These are not things that are set in stone. These are not, this is exactly what they plan on doing for her. These are not, oh, we are redesigning Zinx. These are not that. These are simply, hey, somebody in the office was like, oh, I have some cool ideas for Zinx skins. Let me doodle them up right quick, and like we'll see where we go, because they can always be warped and changed. And they haven't already been modeled, and they're on the assembly line ready to just like hit the ground running once the correct update comes out. These are explorations, which means we are at the point where feedback is crucial from the community at large, but in general, feedback is crucial, and it could tailor and alter the final product before it's in production. So, just wanted to make sure that we set those as the ground rules, or as the kind of groundwork for where we're coming from with these words. So now let's talk about Zinx. In her ancient lore, that is like before Predecessor, all the way back into early Paragon, she was experiment number 348, a perfect success. Originally intended to be a medic, she escaped her captives and went on to find her own path in the world. Eventually, she would go to the map's name, I believe, was Agora at the time, and covet the power of the gods to bring order to the chaotic Omida city. Her gameplay made her an offlaner where she relied heavily on her mana pool. That is, it was a balancing of not casting too many abilities so that you were out of mana, making sure you had enough mana to actually tank damage, and of course, using your passive to regenerate that missing mana. So very much her gameplay relied on her mana pool. You wanted to make sure she didn't receive any mana regeneration naturally. It came from her passive. So you had to wait until, I believe it was, I think at the time in Paragon it was level 5 you got your ultimate. I want to say you got your ultimate about level 5, maybe it was 6. And so before that time, you had to make sure that you weren't spending too much mana casting your abilities, because that would drain your mana pool. And a big portion of your passive, or a big portion of your passive, was that taking damage, a portion of that damage comes out of your mana pool instead of your health bar. But if you didn't have any mana to pay for the damage you were taking it directly from your health bar, and she did not have the biggest health pool. So you had to manage how much mana you were willing to spend on abilities, but also spend in taking trades until you hit level 6, where I believe activating your ulti would refund some mana, or every bit of damage you took would heal you, and I believe you would also recover some mana in the process. So you very much had to play around your mana pool. And now that made her one of the scariest and most durable heroes of Paragon. I'm talking, it took 5-man rotations to kill but one Zinx, and she was taking 1 or 2 people out with her. It was a very scary experience when I did get around to finally experiencing it, because early on I was on a very, very refurbished laptop that couldn't run the game very well. And when I finally was able to run the game decent enough on a brand new laptop that still wasn't really much of a gaming laptop, it's kind of like the end of Paragon's life. So, there's that. Also, if y'all want to see how much notes I wrote down, I write. Yeah, your girl's a writer. By the way, if anybody knows of a place to publish short stories or something like that, that's not like Wattpad, because it is not what it used to be, let me know. So anyway, we fast forward to present day Predecessor, where Zinx has had some alterations and changes to realign her with her destiny as a medic. That is that now in Predecessor, she is not an offlaner, she is a support. Of course, you can attempt to take her in a solo lane, but she'll probably more than likely have a wasted ability, that is, because I believe it is the right mouse button on PC is a heal that gets stronger with more stacks of her passive. However, it does have a passive component of doing dot damage. However, if you're solo laning, you're not really going to be healing anybody, and you can't self-heal. Her ultimate is a rebirth, a revive. You can cast it on yourself. But yeah, essentially she has been realigned with her medic destiny that she was originally created for. Like we won't dive into kit specifics explicitly, which if I do, let me, if you guys want me to, rather, I will do we'll do a whole like kit dive on, how it matches up with lore and gameplay feeling and stuff like that, because that's also stuff that I love to do. I've been such a huge fan of character design and stuff like this, like I said, since forever ago, since elementary, and watching all the cool cartoons and anime. And then when gaming came around, once I learned what gaming was, and such a treasure trove of characters, and I got super attached to the MMO genre, which if y'all don't follow my Twitch or whatever, Twitch is of the same name, Empress Tiramisu. But I love MMOs. When I got into MMOs, I was like, oh my god, I love creating characters. I love seeing classes. I love classes with I love cool abilities that all these classes have. And then I got into MOBAs, starting with I did touch League like at the very very early start, back when you had like the book with the little rune slots that you had to fill it with. Um, but I didn't understand the game then, and then fast forward sometime in like 2019 or so, 2018, 2019, I got into Dota 2, and I was playing Dota 2 for a very long time. Then I got into League. Actually, no, I think it was 2017. Then I got into Dota 2, then I got into League, and then Smite, and then, the rest is history. I absolutely love when these games release new characters. So I'm always interested in seeing how the kit flows and functions, what the lore is, what their design is, potential skin ideas. I absolutely love and gobble that stuff up. So if we want to do it, I'll probably put out a different video that does a proper kit dive. But for all intents and purposes, for this particular video, just know that gameplay wise, for gameplay and what this means in terms of skins, is that back in Paragon days, she was an offlaner. So to me, if that was still the same case, we're talking about wanting to see her in skins that really helped push that idea of her being a dangerous offlaner. Like she was a tank who didn't look bulky at all until you fought her. Until you were like, ah, snap, kitty got claws, I'm dying. And now in Predecessor, she is a proper support, a little, quite an aggressive support, I'd say. And so now that gives a different idea of, for me personally, that gives a different idea of what kind of skins she could possibly have. So, if you knew nothing about Zinx, if I just showed you a picture of Zinx, what would your first thoughts be? Would you assume she was a support? Or do you just think she's furry gooner bait? And both of those two thoughts are things that I've heard and witnessed within the community, and new players who get introduced to Zinx. Like their first thought, they wouldn't think that she was a support. They just thought she looked really cool. They would think she's probably like a mid laner. I've heard mid laner once, and I've heard ADC a few times, but no, she's a support. I wouldn't be surprised if she can get away with ADC, or mid lane even. And then of course, because she is how do I put this? I'm not part of the furry community, so I don't really want to like put the wrong words out there, but she's like a soft introduction to what a furry kind of character could be. She's still very, very human. She's got the tatas, and she's got the very like, the body. She's got the face. She serves face. I think all cat creatures serve face naturally, but like serving face. And so, when you look at her default skin, it's kind of hard to gauge where she is oriented in Predecessor. Like obviously because of her default wear, you can tell, okay, she comes from more of a sci-fi, wherever she comes from, it's a sci-fi setting, right? And because of I actually made this joke to our community manager, which if y'all don't know, I am a Pred Guild member. Yes, that is she. I made this joke to to our community manager, that the default Zinx looks like someone took the hero Wraith, who is another hero in the game, and we'll touch up on one day. They look like they took him apart and turned him into armor for her. Like, I don't want to say it's uninspired, because one, that's rude and I think very disrespectful to the creator and artist, but it's very much like I'm sure there were other ideas in the concept that probably didn't read too well, which is why they didn't go with them. But I'm sure there were other ideas to get that idea that she is a lab experiment across. I think there could have been much stronger execution on that theme. And of course, it's mainly because Predecessor inherited Zinx from Paragon, and I'm sure they probably have been workshopping redesigns for her, but failing that, and wanting to still keep the essence of who Zinx was for the most part, at least visually, I can see why they may not have made physical changes to her appearance to make it more apparent that she is a medic, which is not it's honestly not their fault, and it's not Zinx's design's fault in all honesty, because most of the if you look at across most of the predecessor slash Paragon roster, you'll notice that like you can't 100% tell where most characters fall. Obviously, most characters who have a gun, you might automatically align with being ADC. Most characters who look like they don't use a weapon and they toss magic bolts, you might automatically align with being a mage. Not always the case, but very much that's kind of, at least to me, that is where things kind of make sense for more people. Um, so there's that. Her default skin, the Biotech Prodigy, it leaves a lot of room for artistic interpretation of what her future skins are. And mind you, I'm literally just talking about her default skin compared to the revealed concept explorations. We're not talking about the one skin that she does have, which is a Star Queen or something like that. We're not talking about that. We're just talking straight up her base skin in relation to the three concepts that were exploring that they are exploring. And like I said, it's her the default skin very much looks like somebody took Wraith, broke him down, and was like, okay, what pieces are usable? All right, put them on her. It's gonna be her armor for now. Oh, what about Wraith? Ah, he don't matter. Nobody play him. So that's terrible. People play Wraith. But yeah, that's kind of just what it was very much. It was very much given. If it weren't for her like fur colorations, you probably wouldn't know that she was you probably wouldn't be able to know she was like some kind of cat, because she also lacks a tail. But if you look at her fur coloration, she looks kind of like an orange, I believe it's an orange tabby is what they're called. And she doesn't have like the cat ears. She has like these like alien like fin like ears, so it's also kind of hard to read what she is in a way. But and she also has this very like humanoid, but still cat face, but not like the cats from the movie Cats. Like it actually looks like it was like well done. Um, I say that, but I haven't seen the movie Cats. I've just seen snippets and clips, and boy, yikes, nightmare fuel. Um, but personally, I personally, just talking about like the base skin, would have loved to see what it would look like with an actual like cat tail and the flicking, because if you look at the way she moves, right? If you look at the way that she like runs while she's in lane, or when she's idle, or when she's backing, it almost feels like there should be a tail, which mind you, there are catless tail breeds. Like it's not the weirdest thing that like, oh, the cat character doesn't have a cat tail, that's weird. No, it's not. There are tailless cat breeds that still function as if they did have a long tail. I am just saying that I would personally like to see what it would look like if we did have like the cat tail and the flicker. And if you hear how she talks in her mannerisms, it does sound very like prissy, like cat like, oh no, that is beneath me. But very much still very, because she's a support, it's still very much like, oh, I'll help you, sure. um uh Something else is that like you'll probably notice how like lean and lanky her actual physique and body is compared to the other femme characters in the roster. and that aids in how she moves, because you're also looking at her proportions too. It aids in that like un that inhumane movement that she does, the way that she moves. It makes you understand that she's not entirely just a furred human, right? She is a cat creature that has a humanoid body, and as such, she moves as such. Um, you know, uh, I also don't know specifically, because I've never really, I've owned cats, but like I've never studied cats, so I'm not 100% sure if all her movements are like intentionally cat-like. So sometimes accidents happen. But um, she it all comes together. The way that her body is designed and her visuals come together, it creates Zinx. Like you can see who Zinx it like as you're walking to lane and you see an enemy Zinx approaching, you know that's Zinx. Watching her move against you in lane, you're like, okay, that's Zinx. Is she getting ready to throw her bouncing stun? Is she getting ready to, lob her pool of bad medicine at me? You can, very visually, for all intents and purposes. Again, not, I don't want to say that. While I dislike the plainness of the default skin, it does a everything else she does around the skin kind of enhances it a little bit, and it brings it all together, I guess, is what I'm getting. um so with our baseline kind of figured out, let's dive into the actual meat of this whole chill and spill session, which, if you haven't taken a sip, take a sip. Ooh, even mixed, it's a little strong. So in concept one, we see Zinx become some kind of artificial intelligence similar to like Cortana from Halo, um, with a blue body decorated with digital patterns and golden accents. The style of dress is almost similar to like Desi. If you guys have ever seen like a lot of Desi wear, maybe, or even like belly dancer garb, it feels very much a combination or a fusion of those two inspirations. And I'm not sure what else could fit in there, but for me, those are like automatically the two styles that come to mind. Um, it does alter the silhouette a bit, making her hair less big. It actually smooths it down just a little bit, and moving the blocky cape that Zinx has in her default wear from this shoulder to um, from this like blocky shoulder to lower thigh to hip to upper calf. Most notably, to make up for the absence of armor, her form is slightly thicker. And it might take you a little bit of staring to actually pick up on that. It took me about two passes of looking at it to actually pick up on that. Because the thing is that when you're talking about character silhouettes a lot, you want to make sure that, like, if that character was entirely shadowed out, would you still be able to tell who that character was? And if you did shadow out Zinx and then shadowed out the skin, you wouldn't be able to tell 100% that that was Zinx because of where that cape section kind of changes, and because of the changes to some other aspects of her form, you wouldn't be able to tell that that was Zinx. Which, in all honesty, you're probably gonna hear me mention this several times throughout, that in general, most of the skins, in terms of where they're at, in terms of expiration, where they currently stand, do not read as Zinx. Now, mind you, they said these are epic, rare slash epic skin concepts, and oftentimes those high tier skins do change some animations and effects, and sometimes it does alter a character's silhouette significantly enough that like you can't tell just by looking. You have to wait for the character to actually do their actions and their abilities usually before you can tell. But just keep that in the back of your mind. Um, so most notably also, um, and perhaps like my favorite part of like this design is that digital pattern that she's got going on like the thigh area, and just I don't know. There's something like, but while it's sci-fi, it's also still very mysticism. It still gives air of like mysticism to it, right? Because like obviously because of the overall like tech digital patterns and presentation, it's sci-fi. But because of like the hue of the skin, the blueness, those golden accents, there's also something very like mystical, very magical to it as well. And I wish that the concepts had also shown off what her weapon would look like in these concepts. Um, but it's this either way, like concept one is probably is like not even probably, I think hands down my favorite of the three concept explorations. And if they pushed it a little bit more, tens across the board. But what's keeping me from giving it tens across the board is I hate to say this, or not rather hate. I dislike saying this because I don't want it to sound like a negative, but it's the face for me. The face in the exploration gives very much pretty elf, pretty blue elf. And I think to break that up, they should incorporate some more of that the digital body patterns into the face. And I'm not saying like, it needs to be all over her cheeks and covering her forehead. None of that. Just incorporate some more of like maybe the lines, like some of the digital lines coming from her eyes down her cheeks. Maybe just like it doesn't need to be several lines, just a few, or maybe just a few on her forehead since we can actually see her forehead. Um, just something to kind of break up the face a little bit, and obviously tune it. Sounds like I'm saying face tune, but tune the face a little bit more so it's less human looking. I think that's my big thing. Again, I think that's also another thing you probably hear me mention across all three of the concept explorations is I don't like how human the face is. There's just something about Zinx in and of herself being a cat, being or at least having origins as a cat, where it's like every skin should serve this like smoldering cunty cat face, like. And I think if the concept was nudged a bit closer to that, even if they wanted to still keep the more human aspect, if we could just nudge maybe the eyes closer to like a cat's eye, then I think my issues with the skin, that particular issue with the skin for me would be solved. And it would avoid the trap of like pretty blue elf. That's just, again, that's my take on that. Of course, the face, because the face lacks extra detail, it also works as an area of rest. If you've dabbled in any kind of art, you'll know, or I think it's specifically for like traditional digital 3D design, or I think it's a design principle in general actually, where you want to have areas of rest in your art, and skins are no different. So because of all the golden accents and the digital designs all over the rest of the body, the skin's design needs to have an area of rest. And mind you, the digital lines don't stretch all the way down throughout the body. It's mostly like concentrated in the thigh area. So you still have an area of rest in like the legs, and then the face also serves as an area of rest. So that's also an aspect that I think has to be considered, even though I, like I said, would prefer to have some more of that digital design pattern going up into the face and making it look like um a whole entity. Because right now, as it stands, it looks like the concept, the head of the concept just doesn't match the rest of the body. I'm also a little bit sad that they made her hair smaller, because in her default, her hair is kind of like a little bit wild. It's still tamed, but it's still big and kind of wild, kind of like 80s, 90s big hair, you know? Um, so that's like the main thing for me with this particular concept and skin. The thing also to consider here is I forgot as I was looking over my notes. The most you probably this the whole face thing is probably also a little bit moot, because the only time you're gonna really see her face is if you're picking her in the hero select. And you select that skin. That's probably the only time you're really going to see her face up close. And then, other than that, unless you're actually playing her and you like to pan your camera around to look at your character, the enemy team isn't really going to be able to see your face, because they're going to try to play away from you. And, you know, you're obviously not going to be seeing your character's face because she's going to be facing away from you. So it might be a little bit moot, but I feel like it's a small detail that most people probably won't notice nor care about. Moving on to concept number 2, we have magical girl Zinx. White, magenta, yellow, and powder blues create a striking Senshi outfit for our medic. Her fur is replaced by tan skin, and she gives up her alien ear fins for these fox slash cat ears, but they look more fox in the concept. Please don't shoot me. They look more Foxian in the concept. Some might ask why. I don't have an answer. I don't. Some people just want humanoid Zinx, and I guess this is a cool way to I think it's a cool way to implement it. What I can say is that I really love the magical girl concept. I'm a huge Sailor Moon fan. I watched the 90s. I watched Crystal. I read some of the manga that I did have access to. I was always hunting down back before DeviantArt got flooded with all the AI art that's on there. I used to love going on to DeviantArt and looking up people's OCs, because everybody had such amazing OC teams of their own, their own theming. And in addition to, a lot of people also wrote stories. I used to really love reading people's stories about their own Sailor Senshi characters, and how, you know, they got along in their adventures. And then I'm also a huge fan of the Precure series. I think I've seen almost all of them, if not all of them. Just I love the whole magical girl genre and what it could be. I've only dabbled in Madoka Magica because it's a little dark. It's a little dark. Um, but I absolutely love the magical girl concept. Even League Star Guardians, some of my favorite skin line in League Star Guardians. Love it. And then Smite had their what are they? Mystical Guardians, I believe. I just downright love the concept when it's executed on well. And when I say executed on well, I mean like you can really see that that character is a magical guardian. And I personally, don't shoot me. And I know this is kind of off topic, but personally, I need to see more men in there too. League started with Ezreal and then eventually Echo, but them's is boys. Let's have some men. I think it's time. Yeah, yeah. Quang, however y'all choose to pronounce it these days. Yeah. Let's get him. Let's get him in a magical man outfit, magical boy. Let's go. Yeah. Maybe hell, maybe we can even get it. We can even probably even fit in a twin blast. Yeah. Yeah. I can see it. But anyway, back on topic. I think it's a cool concept to explore. I just don't think I want to see it with Zinx though. And again, I understand it's a twofold thing. One, magical girl, yay. Two, we get to see a human Zinx, and I think that that part of it is cool. Getting to explore, okay, what would Zinx look like if she came out more human as opposed to, cat furry. And I I don't think it's terrible. I just, when I think magical girl and predecessor, Zinx isn't who comes to mind first. It's actually Shinbi. I think, and I don't want to make it typecasty. Like, I don't want to say, oh, I prefer, Shinbi as like the first magical girl because of typecasting. But Shinbi's play style, effects, personality, and just overall presentation lead to her, I think, being, or at least having the VIP access, the prestige to being our first magical girl. I don't think, and mind you, these skin concepts I know aren't coming anytime soon. Again, these are just the concepts. These are just the sketches that somebody drew up because they had the time and they were like, here's some explorations that I think would be neat for Zinx. Each one representing a different facet of things. The first concept was sci-fi. This one is, magical girl fantasy. And I just think that this concept would fit Shinbi better, and she should be the one to explore this concept first. She should be the one to touch foot on this first. Now, as far as let's say, okay, that's already been done. Let's say Shinbi already has hers and that's coming out and they're trying to figure out who else to put in this lineup. And we're looking at Zinx. Um I'd be for it. I think I'd be for it with some changes. Some of those changes would be for us to get her to look more like Zinx. That's like if you listened through for the first concept. Concept 2 has the same problem that it doesn't feel very Zinx, at least in the face. And then again, I know this is a concept, but we're talking like, in a way, we're also talking about, okay, what needs to be changed to get it to feel more Zinx like. And my first thing is start with the face. Remember, base Zinx is still a cat, even if we're exploring what she looks like as a human, in a more human manner, less furry manner. She is still a cat at her base, and by extension, her face should still, in my opinion, come off as cat like. Again, just cat. It doesn't need to be like serious cat face, but cat eyes. Either the makeup style needs to be more cat like, or just the overall features should present more cat like. Secondly, the ears. We gotta talk about the ears. The ears look like fox ears. Let's get them to look more cat like. I don't know what cat. Again, cats run a wide gamut. Like there's so many different kinds of cats out there, and I think that there are a pair of cat ears that fit this magical girl concept better. Bobcat ears could potentially work. I believe it's bobcat or mountain lion ears. Correct me if I'm wrong. That have like the little tufts at the end or something like that. I think that would be phenomenal if we still wanted to keep that longness and that structure. Um, but also, let's talk about the hair. Um, oh, while Concept 1 slimmed down her hair, Concept 2 basically gave her a relaxer. I'm not really a big fan, especially because so many of the femme presenting characters in the game already have pretty straight hair. Um, we lack curly hair girlies in the roster, and while Zinx's hair is technically not curly and to my knowledge not really textured, there's still a wildness about it in it being big. And I think I personally think we should keep that. We should keep it big. I think that's true for any skin concept for the most part. At least her first few. Let me step it back. At least her first few concepts, I think we should still keep the hair kind of big. Um, and I think that's one of my favorite features of her, actually. Just the hair, like her hair isn't just big, right? Like it looks a little bit untamed. It looks a little bit, natural. And I think that's one of my favorite aspects of things, and that's missing from this concept. And like I said about the appearance, the facial structure and the facial appearance, we could definitely lean into a more cat-like structure. And my hair is bothering the absolute hell out of me. Um, we could lean into a more cat-like facial structure, for sure. Because even despite her being more humanoid, I would still like callbacks to the base skin for Zinx, at least for this skin. I can't speak to future skins. I can only speak to what's in front of us right now. And personally, I love the overall color choices. I think the magenta was the right pick. Because remember, for if you're a follower of the magical girl genre, all magical girls have a color that's basically like their aura color. And I think magenta is perfect for Zinx. I do wish it was part of her base kit because her base kit is kind of just blue. Um, I honestly think it could be a little bit more pink because her bad medicine lob thing, is pink. I kind of think I would like to push it more towards the pink side, but overall, I think this was a good color choice, especially depending on who else is part of the Magical Girl skin lineup, because that's also another important thing is how the colors kind of spread out among characters. Even if the characters aren't part of the same team, right? You want to make sure that the colors you're picking make sense for whatever magical girl universe you're putting together. So, that's that. That's that on concept two. Finally, we've got concept number three. Um, it's a drow slash dark elf Zinx. If you thought concept two looked nothing like Zinx, then I am sorry to disappoint you, but concept three looks even less like a Zinx kind of concept at all. Um, and that's because, well, again, we're replacing her fur. In the first two concepts, in concept one, her skin was replaced by translucent blue digital hollow flesh, I guess. Two, she did away with the fur, baby got a tan, she looked great. Three, in this concept, her skin is now a pale blue indigo. Her hair was relaxed and dyed white. Her armor was replaced for cloth leather and studded leather. We also have that pretty elf face thing going on that I talked about in the first concept. Um, and so, like, there's with concept three, there's nothing wrong with the concept, in my opinion. I genuinely think the whole Drow Dark Elf thing could be explored more, especially with other characters. But when I think Drow Dark Elf, because of my background of playing Dota 2, I think Drow Ranger. And when I think Drow Ranger, I think our predecessor ADC Sparrow. And I'm like, ooh, a Drow Ranger skin or a Drow skin or a Dark Elf skin for Sparrow would be amazing. Now, mind you, this concept, I'm assuming, is for a high fantasy skinline concept. And I have no qualms about it. However, with the current looks of the concept redesign, I don't think it should go to Zinx. I think that should go to Sparrow. If they wanted to do the Dark Elf thing for Zinx, I think they would need to change around a lot of the design. One, again, my problem, the hair. Two, I'm not gonna go through that again. But problem number two is that her overall look doesn't really give Zinx for me. Concept two, right, is a magical girl outfit. So it makes sense that it looks the way that it does. This drow outfit, while it's supposed to be, or this drow skin, while it's supposed to be high fantasy concept, I'm just not reading Zinx in it at all, really. Without some changes to the actual outfit to make it look more medic like, I feel. And also, again, with that, the face we've got going on is it's less furry, which I think is the point of concepts two and three, and one to a degree. It's less furry. I understand. But I would still like to see a Zinx face in there. And something I forgot to mention about concept two was that I would like to see, like, even if we kept the furless version of the concept, I would like to see a furred version. I would like to see a Zinx as a magical girl version, right? Like, magical. If you, like I said, I went to DeviantArt and I saw all kinds of magical girls, all kinds. Some with tentacles, some that didn't even have a human shape. Like, I think I would like to see what the Zinx, what Concept 2 looks like as just like some cat. We can go with a differently designed cat to what exists as base Zinx. Heck, even throw in a tail. But back to Concept 3, um, it's a deep fantasy exploration or high fantasy exploration, however you want to go about wording it. And there's nothing wrong with it. Just again, in my experience, based upon, or rather because of my experience, when I see the skin concept, I think Drow Ranger from Dota 2. I automatically think Ash from League. And then I start thinking Sparrow. This 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 concept aligns with Sparrow so well, so well. It calls back to concept two, where like that it seems like a no brainer that that should go to Shinbi. This concept, concept three, feels like a no brainer that should go to Sparrow. Hands down, Sparrow. If we wanted to have multiple dark elves or drow in in the game, then we would need to redesign this outfit to make it match something that Zinx would actually wear as a drow or a dark elf. And I'm not trying to use those words interchangeably because I believe they are two different fantasy species. But yeah, I think that's the main thing missing from me. I don't hate the exploration of this concept or dislike it. I would just like to see a change in outfit and clothing, and I think that'll change my mind. Um, as far as the hair goes, again, I said I was going to get into it, but like Zinx has big hair, and I think we need to keep the big hair. If we can't keep the cat face, then at least keep the big hair. We can't get rid of both. I don't want to rather I would rather we didn't get rid of both. We kept one or the other. Either we make the face more Zinx, more cat like, or we keep the big hair at least. And I think that would ease some of my apprehension, I guess would be the word, about the skin. Um so, like I said, there's nothing wrong with the concept inherently. I just think it needs some changes um, to be a bit closer to like base Zinx and make more sense to me. Oh my god. Oh no, my wig is shifting. Girl, this shaking though. But it's a gorgeous concept. All things considered, it is a very gorgeous concept. It just needs some changes. Mm. So there you have it. Concept one is sci-fi. Concept two is a magical girl, less fur concept. I think, to be fair, I think all three concepts are a less fur concept. And concept three is high fantasy. Um, so feel free to categorize them how you like. Maybe you have a different wording system or different ways to classify them. However you choose to classify them, all three explore what Zinx will look like with less fur. But I also think because of having less, because she's moving away from that furry ideal, we're also losing what the essence of Zinx, if that makes sense. So, again, remember, these are explorations. They are not set in stone. They are open to feedback. I'll even leave the link to the Twitter post showcasing all of the concepts off. I believe there's also a Reddit post you can also go to if you play Pred, or even if you just have like kind of like opinions on it, then please feel free to like share those. Um, And yeah, just they're open to feedback, and I think that's the most important thing. Um, about the concept specifically, concept one is definitely hands down my favorite, followed by two and three. Three is like all the way down here, but one is up here, two is like hovering somewhere here, and then three not even on my radar. Don't even want to consider it really. It's not bad. I just don't think it matches up to where the other two are, and even then, between the two, there's still a fairly large gap. And um, just in general, I I think for concept one, the overall visual style and representation of it, I think definitely would match up way better with again the gameplay style of Zinx. I could see the story of concept one being that like she's like some kind of medical AI or something that was given a body or manufactured a body or something, right? And was able to um and was able to help on the front lines proper as opposed to in the lab that she was constrained in. I think that's like the biggest part of it for me. I can envision the story behind the skin. That's always going to be important for me when I do these kinds of things. And as if they continue to reveal more concept arts and explorations, this is the kind of things that I consider when talking about skins. How well do they align with the base character? How well do they align with the character's play style? Because it's cool to have cool skins. The rule of cool is not always bad. Sometimes the skin is just nice. Like it's just a nice idea to have that skin. But then we start talking about gameplay effects. We start talking about readability and silhouette and all that stuff. And then then you got to kind of key the conversation differently. But for all intents and purposes, that's how I like to think of skins. I'm like, oh, okay, I could see this character having this skin. I could see them belonging in the world that this skin comes from. Because it doesn't inherently change the character overall, right? I think that's also a big thing about skins for me. Speaking specifically for me, I like when skins don't just overall wipe a character of their traits. I am much more invested in skins when they look a little bit closer to their base skin. And the whole point of a skin is to dress up a character too, right? So I still at least want one or two elements of the original character still present in the skin. That way, it doesn't feel like it's just lost forever. And that's kind of one of my problems that I had with some of the like skins from Smite. A lot of people's favorite skins from Smite were like the collab skins, right? I didn't like a lot of them, to be honest, because it changed the character. Like it didn't change their gameplay fundamentally, but it changed the presentation of the character, and I was to an nth degree, and I just didn't really vibe with it. Now, for some people, that's actually great because some people don't like the base character at all. In the case of like Freya, for example, some people wouldn't play Freya if you didn't have the Weiss skin from the collab. So everybody's got their things, and you can't please everybody. Um, but that's just kind of where I stand on that. Concept two, it has merit on both sides of the coin. Like, hey, human Zinx, that's neat. Also, alien cat magical girl, that's also neat. Um, and if I had it my way, we could have both. We could have both skins in the game. We could have both a human magical girl Zinx and a cat magical girl Zinx. We could have both, and you can just pick which one. But I know that there's a lot of time that needs to be dedicated to doing something like that, and you don't really always have that time, resources, and sometimes it's not always worth it. Sometimes you gotta pick one and stick to your guns. Um, but nonetheless, it'd be kind of cool. And then, like I said, Concept 3 is a certified chop for me. It's not really on my radar. I just I think unlike Concept 2, it changes too much about Zinx. It just damn near looks like a whole different character, which to be fair, if you blocked out Zinx, all three concepts look like entirely different characters. So that's not entirely its fault. And again, these are concept designs. They're not set in stone. They can always be changed and altered, which is why I'm doing this video and I'm giving feedback. And it's a little lengthy, it's a little yappy. I apologize, but there's a lot of thoughts. And yeah, concept 3 just feels like it's designed for an entirely different character and nonsense. Um, but I think if they go in and they alter the outfit a bit, then we're talking. Then we're talking about doing like a dark elf or drow skin line for multiple characters. Um, but as it stands, the current way that it's designed or presented rather, or conceptualized, however, whatever word you want to use, it just does not do it for me. Um, and yeah, maybe a change in garment can help. Maybe giving her the big hair. If we're gonna keep the pretty elf face, then maybe giving her back the big hair. Well, make something. But anyway, that's enough yapping from me. This video has gone on for far too long. If you manage to sit through all this and listen to me yap about something that probably doesn't matter in the long run because, people are going to do what they're going to do, and my voice is but small. I don't have the kind of reach. I don't work at the company. I'm not leading any designs or any of that sort of stuff. I'm just a humble Jane Doe on the internet and hoping that one day I can be part of a studio and I can be influential in design changes and stuff. But we all gotta start somewhere. But I think I'm excited to see what they do for my girl Zinx, because I think she deserves a really cool epic or rare skin. And if all three skins get made, I'm excited for that too, because more skins, more skins. Nobody's ever going to turn down more skins for characters that they like and characters that they play, and that's the important part. Making sure that the community has things that they actually want, regardless of how I personally feel the things should be presented. If the community is happy with the way these skins are, who am I to say otherwise? I can't tell you what to like. I can simply just say, hey, here's my opinion on these things. This is what I would like to see changed. And if it doesn't change, I'm not gonna sweat it. Hey, there's always next time. Maybe this time I just didn't have the correct, or I didn't have enough evidence or whatever to really influence anything, and that's fine. That's fine. We can't change every and anything. Um, but I will catch y'all in the next one. Stay safe, stay sane, spread pleasure, spread happiness, and enjoy all things in excess.